Online for Authors. I'm chatting with Linda Margolin Royal, author of The Star on the Grave. Welcome, Linda.
Hi, how are you?
I am super excited to be here with you today. Loved the book. I am a huge historical fiction fan, so I really enjoyed this. But before we dive in and really start talking about the book, can you give my listeners a quick idea of what they're going to find when they open up the cover of The Star on the Grave?
Sure. They're going to find, first of all, they're going to find a little quote that I found from a Holocaust survivor, actually, who passed away, unfortunately, last year. And that really resonated with me because she said, people say don't live in the past. I don't live in the past. The past lives in me. Yeah. And that's really a precursor to the story. It's about generational trauma. It's about post-traumatic stress of children Holocaust survivors. And it's set in 1968, and it's a journey back to closure for a young girl who, who has there's secrets, there's family secrets. And so she's discovering these things and going back to find them.
Right. It was so fascinating to me. I want to know why this story. What made you say, this is what I'm going to write?
Okay. Why this story? Because I was a copywriter for 30 years. And so I was writing, in fact, I was in Chicago for 2 years, or 2 winters, I would say.
Well, that's like 4 or 5 years right there if you did the winters.
When you're from Sydney, Australia, and in particular Bondi Beach, where, you're used to kind of LA weather, that was a real shock to the system. And then I always wanted to write something significant, but I just didn't have a story. And I was used to writing 1-minute TV commercials and thinking, I can entertain people. I want to write a movie. Right. And then my dad told us this story when he was 80. And this is a common phenomenon with Holocaust survivors and people who've survived trauma. They realize when their life is coming to an end that they better get this stuff out. And he just started telling us this story of this hair-raising escape, part of which is in the book. And the rest is in the prequel that I've just written, the second book. And we went, oh, okay. And then he mentioned this gentleman. Oh, yes. And we were in Lithuania and we went to the Japanese embassy and we got these visas from a guy called Sugihara. He had lovely, kind eyes. He was 11 years old, my dad. And I said, who's that? And he said, he gave us visas to Japan. And I went, okay. And my brother said, have you ever heard of him? I said, no. So I looked him up and realized that he was like Schindler on steroids. He'd rescued 6,000 refugees from the Holocaust, including my family. And I thought, how come nobody knows about this guy? We all know about Schindler. I'm going to change that. I started writing the movie.
Fantastic. Well, first of all, me too. I was thinking, who is this guy? I've never heard of him. Like, how could I not have heard of him? With all that I've read and all that I've studied, I had never heard this story before. And that's why I was not excited, because it feels wrong to be excited about anything to do with the Holocaust, but I was excited to learn this piece of truth that I did not know before.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't just a made up story, like it was like, wow, this man really existed. He really did this thing.
Yeah. So that's what drove me, because I thought, well, it's not only there's my story, this is my life. And I owe my life and the lives of my children to this man. It's an extraordinary feeling to be saved by someone, a stranger, and know that 95% of Polish Jews were exterminated, and my heritage is Polish. So odds were against me ever being born. And I thought, well, okay, I'm going to devote my life to immortalizing this guy.
I think that's fabulous. That just makes me, everything about that is amazing.
Yeah.
So knowing that this is your family story, is it 100% your family story, or did you fictionalize some of it as well?
Creative license.
Yes, I know, creative license. I've done it as well.
I'm writing about a 21-year-old girl in 1968, heavily modeled on me, but there are elements of her that are not me that I fictionalized for impact. I also wanted to reach a broad, generic audience globally with this story, so it got everywhere, and it needed to be entertaining. So whilst I kept the but my story fictionalized, the one I couldn't fictionalize was the one of this gentleman, Chiune Sugihara. Right. And so his true story is weaved through in a parallel narrative. So every few pages you go into his story and you get the accurate story in parallel of, what they're experiencing.
Well, fantastic. Okay. So we know, Rachel finds out this family secret. She finds out she's Jewish. Yes. I have to know, did you always know you were Jewish, or yes. was this something? So this did not happen to you?
No. So this is
that's the license part.
Everybody asked the same question. No, yes. I interviewed a few people here that had that, and a lot of people it had happened to, particularly in the Hungarian heritage, because they suffered the largest losses because Hitler went in very late into Hungary, and they literally all went straight to the gas chambers. And so they were so traumatized, they decided they were petrified in a new homeland to admit that they were Jewish. So they brought their children up non-Jewish. They called them Christine, Christina, and so I interviewed a few of them, and this had happened to them. They didn't know. They got to college, university here, and then started meeting other Jewish people, and then asked their parents, what their heritage was, or somehow they found out the story. But I thought it was a really interesting way of dealing with it.
I think so too, and I can imagine that would be a very traumatic thing to believe that you're something, and then to find out much later that you're not.
Yeah.
That you're actually something else, and there's a whole story behind you. I'm curious. So that part didn't happen to you, but you didn't know about your father's harrowing escape or the man that saved them. What was that like for you?
I knew that they'd escaped. My dad had told us this incredible story that my grandmother was beautiful looking. She'd won some beauty contest in Warsaw, and she had flirted with some Gestapo officer and coerced him to drive them to the border in the middle of the night. And this was already December 1939. So the Nazis already invaded. So we knew that there was some kind of hair-raising tale, but we didn't know the rest. So to find that out sent me on a journey of discovery, like my character, because I started sourcing survivors and descendants of Sugihara all over the world. I went to the USA in 2019 and I interviewed some very prominent Sugihara survivors. And so it was amazing, because we're all kind of like one big family, which I guess the Schindler ones are too. As you see at the end of the movie, they all, they're quite emotional about it.
Yeah. No, I can only imagine the impact that would have on you to realize that there is a single source that was the difference between your family being here and your family not being here.
Yeah. So it is. It's quite impactful, and it's become bigger than the book now. I mean, when I do speaking events, I do quite a few of them, and I've done a TEDx talk. People can look me up. It's all about the power of one person who had moral clarity to go against the crowd at a very dangerous time, and that we can all think about that in our lives, about helping other people, even if it's just helping an old man across the street or giving a homeless person a meal. We all have that power, the power of one.
Right. I find that fascinating. Does his family have any contact with like your family now? Like, does it still go on? Are you still in contact with them, or is that, I don't even know how that would work.
Oh, it's so beautiful. So his only surviving son, Nabuki, is a friend of mine. In fact, my husband and I are going to Belgium in a couple of weeks, where he lives, and I've already messaged him. I'd love to have dinner with you and your wife. So we're going for dinner. My daughter, who backpacked around Europe, I got her to contact him. He insisted that she cancel her hostel and stay with him. So she stayed with him overnight. He took her out for a meal. It's so special. Yeah.
I can imagine it was. Does he have any memories of this happening?
Yeah, huge memories. And he impacted greatly on what I wrote about, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I wanted to make sure it was accurate. So it was literally from the horse's mouth. So he was 18 when a survivor found his dad living in Moscow. And the Israeli government, when they found out that this gentleman was alive, and all these survivors decided, we've got to honor him somehow. And they realized, and he had no idea how many he had saved. And so the Israeli government said, what can we do for you? We're so grateful. And he said, well, my youngest son, Nabuki, has just finished school and I can't afford to put him through college. I've put my other two through college. And they said, well, we will give him a scholarship to the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. And so he went. 3 weeks later, he said, I packed my bags. I was 18 years old. I had this complete sea change and went and lived in Jerusalem. He studied there. He lived there for 10 years. He learned the diamond trade. He's now a diamond trader in Belgium. He speaks fluent Hebrew and he considers Israel his home.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Stories like this always, I mean, I actually have chill bumps on my arms. It's crazy. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the research, because I'm sure there had to be research in all of this. Yeah. Where were some of your better sources? How did you go about finding truth versus, you said there was a lot of misinformation out there. Like how were you able to separate that out?
Interviews. It starts in Sydney, it goes to Japan, and then ends up in Moscow in 1968. So there wasn't much information about communist Russia. Yeah. I could watch YouTube videos and see what it looked like, so I could write the descriptions. But, you know, I needed to know, when people hopefully read the book, that I needed to know what the airport looked like, how you get from Japan to, how do you travel in communist Russia? What did Japan look like? So I interviewed some Japanese senior citizens here that were teenagers or in their early 20s in 1968 to Japan, to get an idea of the flavor. Obviously, I read a lot about that. I talk about Hiroshima, so I had to research Hiroshima. That was quite easy to get reasonable information on. And then for Moscow, it was much more difficult, but there are a lot of Russians in Sydney, especially ones that were fleeing communist Russia, who could tell me quite accurately what they ate, what food lines looked like, and or what their living conditions were like, what the airport looked like, how you got there. As a tourist, there's all these intricate things. You couldn't just land there and be a tourist. You literally had the KGB escorting you everywhere by way of a tour guide. And so, yeah, that's how I did it, mainly by interview.
I think that is fascinating. About how many people did you interview?
Wow. Oh, I also interviewed the Sugihara survivors to get the accurate portrayal. Probably I'd say about 15 people.
That is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Are there any survivors left?
Yeah.
At this point, because I'm starting to think they're going to soon not be around.
Yeah. No, they're dying out. There's one amazing one I just interviewed. In fact, I've just pitched, not successfully, to the Wall Street Journal with this story, but I'm hoping to get it into mainstream US media. Leo Melamed, who is from Chicago, he created financial futures and the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. He's massive, and he's 94, sharp as a tack, lovely, lovely man. And what he is most passionate about is not the fact that he's an incredible, he's huge. Milton Friedman has written about him, who's, the father of economics.
Right.
So, but what he's most passionate about is this story. And he goes into great detail. He was 8 years old. And so he told me the whole escape and what the conditions were like. My dad did as well. He was 11, so that was great. Not many in Sydney. There's maybe 2 or 3 left in Sydney. There's a few in Melbourne, but yeah, they're all in their 90s now.
Right. Because, World War II has been some time ago.
Yeah.
And so even the ones who were small children are at the end of their life now. So yeah. I think it's fascinating that you were able to get this story down while still having first sources to go to.
Yes. I was researching for so long. So, I mean, by the time I wrote the movie, which segued to the book, you know, it's already about 7 or 8 years work. So they were a lot younger and sharper.
Right, right. Oh, that is absolutely fascinating. So you've already told us that there is another book that you've just finished. So talk to us a little bit about that and what we're going to find out in that story.
Sure. So the first one is called The Star on the Grave. And you'll have to read the book to find out why. The second one is called The Star on the Sleeve, and it is the backstory set in 1940, and it's the actual escape. And a lot of it takes place in Lithuania. I wanted to highlight what went on for Lithuanian Jews because it's not much talked about, but they were affected more than any other nationality. The losses there were greater than anywhere. And then it ends up in Japan, 1940. So I had this amazing, again, I had to research Japan in 1940, which was incredible. Right. And there was quite a bit about that because there was already a small, well-established Jewish community where they ended up, and they were embraced by that community. And then ends up in Australia in 1941, which obviously I live here, so I kind of have an idea of what that was like.
Right.
Yeah, so it's the backstory because in The Star on the Grave, whilst the main protagonist is this 21-year-old Rachel, her grandmother, which is heavily modeled on my grandmother, who was this incredible, larger-than-life, hilarious figure, everyone fell in love with. And so all the reviews started coming in because, of course, there's like hundreds of reviews here because it's a bestseller in Australia and an award winner. And so it got quite a bit of exposure. Everyone was saying, oh, we love the grandmother. We love the grandmother. So I thought, well, I better make her the main protagonist and give her
her story. Yeah. Well, let me tell you, I also loved the grandmother. I mean, how could you not love her? And when you said she was larger than life, it was like, oh, she was. I could just picture her. Yeah. And you know, despite all of the other things going on in her life, she was just there. Like, you know, here I am. And, you know, and I loved the relationship that she and Rachel had. Everything about that. And so the fact that she is actually based off of your grandmother also makes me very happy. That means that you had a wonderful grandmother and a wonderful childhood. So that's.
I did. And a lot of her dialogue, you know, it's very rich in dialogue because it was a screenplay before I converted it to a book. And so, yes, that's exactly how she spoke. If people download the audiobook, I don't know how well the lady tackled the Polish accent, but that's how she spoke. And a lot of those things happened to me that happened with her. So, yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's really interesting. That's really interesting. When people are done reading your book, what do you hope they will walk away with?
I hope they will walk away with I hope the themes, it's very thematically rich, and that's what I wanted. And I wanted the themes to be global. I want them to walk away with a few things. One is how difficult it is for refugees fleeing persecution to resettle in a new homeland, the challenges they face, and how they often conceal their heritage for fear of persecution, especially the Jewish population. Australia has the largest population of Holocaust survivors outside of Israel and the US. And it's very important for people to understand, to be sensitive to the fact that people who had to flee persecution and just set up home somewhere, it was the same for the Jews coming in through Ellis Island and setting up down in 12th Street and the tenements in New York. You know, they bring their heritage with them, but it's very, very difficult. Also, the impact on the next generation, the generational trauma that is, my daughters are constantly telling me, oh, Mum, you have generational trauma. But I'm proud of that and I own it. And I think that's made me who I am. And it gives me a sense of duty to carry on my story and carry their story through, that it's so important. History is so important. And just also the importance of connection to family, that family is everything, and connection to culture and faith. And there are things that keep you going and hold families together.
Absolutely. I definitely agree with that idea of generational trauma. It happens in cases a lot less severe than yours. My grandfather fought in World War II.
Oh.
We're American. He fought in Germany, and my dad was a little boy. He was 4 years old when his father went off to war, and he was 6 when his dad came back home. And it was a major part of who my dad was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he was without his dad for 2 years. And when his dad came back, his dad had seen things that people ought not see. And therefore, things were different than they were before he left for the war. And I often heard about that. And I don't feel it directly so much myself, one more generation removed, yet I know that I was raised in particular ways because of how my dad was.
Of course.
Because of how his dad was. And so a book that I actually wrote talks about war and the fact that it doesn't end when we say the end.
That's exactly right.
Right? Like it ends maybe politically. The two countries are no longer shooting one another, but it does not end for the soldier or their families.
Yeah. So I'm sure then for your dad and maybe his dad, if he got to see it, Saving Private Ryan must have really resonated. That scene where that man is kneeling beside the grave of his friend and the whole thing is my grandfather very rarely talked about the war. He very rarely brought it up. He ended up in Germany after the war for a period of time until they could get everyone back home again. I heard a little bit about that period when it wasn't wartime. It was after war as they were waiting to come back. But he spoke very little about it. In fact, the one thing that he did say to me is what prompted my book. He said, we're of German heritage, though we'd been in the United States for generations. And he said, I always wondered if the person on the other side of my gun was a cousin. And so that was something that haunted him. Yeah.
And those are the kinds of things that people, I know those are the kinds of things that people carry with them. So I love that idea of that generational trauma. There is that. What happens to an adult gets passed on to their children. It can't be helped. It's on.
So I've written about that, the fact that she has, right from the start, readers will see she has a very strained relationship with her disconnected father because he's carrying trauma from the war. And she doesn't know that because, they've hidden everything from her. So she doesn't know what her heritage is. So she's got no idea why he's so distant. She doesn't have a mum. So she relies heavily on the grandmother. So I thought that was really important. The other thing that was really important for me was the power of one, the fact that all these people were alive because of this man, and he was humble, and he only did it, as his son says. He literally said, "If I didn't do this, it was disobeying my government, but I knew that I would be disobeying God." It was the right thing to do. He just kept on saying to his life, I just did it because it was the right thing to do.
There was one point in there where like his hand is going numb, and he's written so many of these that he can, he can hardly, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh. And I was actually afraid for him several times because I thought they're going to come and take him away. They're going to like shoot him or something. I was just, I was very impressed. I'm always impressed when I see someone doing the right thing when the world would tell you to walk away or to look away or to, it's not your responsibility.
Yes. Well, they were allies of Nazi Germany. So he was
right.
What he was doing was really bad stuff. Quietly dismissed when he returned to Japan from his diplomatic duties. It was never said why, but of course he knew why. He had asked them 3 times for permission to save these Jewish refugees, and 3 times they said no. And he completely
did it anyway.
Yeah. That's extraordinary courage with 3 young boys and a 27-year-old wife.
Yeah.
That's real courage.
That is not only real courage, but it's even beyond that, because as I know, as a parent, I'll do things, but if I'm afraid that it will impact my children, I think differently about what I will do. And so here he is doing something really huge, really impactful that is going to not only hurt him, but could easily hurt his children.
That's right.
I also liked his wife because his wife seemed to very much encourage him to keep doing it, that she too saw what he was doing was right, and was also willing to live with the consequences of whatever that meant.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was very impressed. So tell me a little bit. You've got the second book out. Mm-hmm. Is it out? Or is it coming out?
It's at the publisher for consideration. They're, doing what publishers do. Oh, we just want to make sure we've got the right editor.
Yes, got it. Okay. When all of that's done, though, are you planning to keep writing? Do you now have the bug and you're going to keep going?
I promised myself no after the second one. I thought I cannot do this again. But I do have an idea. I've got an outline for a third book, which is the story continuing on from 1968, sometime in the future, tentatively called The Star on the Necklace. So it would make a nice, series. And I've also, because I'm going back to where my head goes, which is cinema, I've already got the TV series outline for the 2 books.
I love that.
We're going to, as soon as it gets prominent in the US and known a bit more, we can start approaching movie studios and streamers and hopefully get that up.
Oh, I love that. Linda, that means that you've been bit by the bug. If you've said no after 2 and then you already have an outline, then you've been bitten. And I hate to tell you, there will be a 4th and a 5th book. Whether they're in this series or not, I don't know. But I think that you've been bitten by the bug. Maybe. So if someone wanted to get in touch with you, talk with you about this story, talk with you about, how to learn more, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Oh gosh, I'm on Instagram, Linda Royal Author. I'm on Facebook, Linda Royal. I'm on LinkedIn. They can go to my website. That's the best go-to. It'll have my email address and all those URLs. I am at staronthegrave.com. So the book is called The Star on the Grave, but the website is just staronthegrave.com. It's got all my links to my media because I've done a lot of media in Australia, obviously, before this US release. And a shout out to my amazing publisher, Sibylline Press, who are a bunch of 4 ladies in California who only publish women and only publish women over 50.
Oh, I should go talk to them.
Yes. They identified a niche market because we were all being overlooked, and we're the ones that have the experience and can write about life better than anybody else.
I love that.
Yep.
Fantastic. I love to hear about those kinds of things as well, because, as an author, finding the right place for your story is difficult.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's almost impossible. So
yeah. So they're a small publisher, but because of that, I have to do a lot of legwork. So people, please go into bookstores and ask your bookstore to order me in through Ingram Spark. That's the way they do it. Or I'm available right now on Amazon.com in Kindle, audiobook, and paperback. So
fantastic. Yeah. So everybody run out and grab yourself a copy. It is a fantastic story. You are not going to be disappointed. Then when you're done reading it, put out a review. Make sure that review gets on Amazon. It gets out on Goodreads. It gets out anywhere that you see that you can put a review of the book. Make sure you do that, because reviews are golden, aren't they, Linda? Yes. And they're hard to get. So make sure that you do that.
I can now say, when I've got a bookstagram. I just wanted to show everyone that's my book, The Star on the Grave.
Yes, beautiful.
From this morning, a bookstagrammer has just promoted me on Insta, because hopefully going to be a big hit.
I think it will. It's a beautiful book. And I want to thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.